I started using Ableton Live much deeper, maybe 10 years ago, and it's been a while. Even though I was taught music production on Pro Tools, I always stuck with Ableton Live. And now that I'm working with a couple of music production programs in different schools, I think I finally understand what stuck with me, what really pulled me into Ableton Live. This video will not try to make any DAW user any DAW less anything, because they all work for the same thing and for the same purpose. We can get over ourselves in that sense. I'm Juanchis, and let's talk about why I like Ableton Live and why you might enjoy it as well. First, we have to understand that Live was actually born as a music making, performing DAW back in October 30 of 2001. It's been a long run from that. And it was made mainly as a resource for Mono Lake's performance within the live situation. So we have that mindset in the beginning. It was never made with the intention of working only as a tape machine or mainly as a tape machine. So probably the sooner we understand that we shouldn't be thinking about it that way, we will understand its true strengths or some of its benefits. When I open Ableton Live, I have a whole different perspective on how to work drums, because we have drum racks that are these containers that can help you do anything, and they have their own micro mixer built inside with their own returns, and there are so many routing options to do creative sound design when you're making music. I honestly find the interface really easy to read, and that's the only thing that you should look into when you're trying to start with a DAW. It doesn't matter what anyone says. If it really draws you in, then you should start with that one, because it's going to be a screen that you will be looking at for a long time. So it better be comfortable for you to look at. It really takes me into this semi-modular system ecosystem where I can just start putting things together, where I can even try in the same channel 3 different ideas, solo them one by one, and pick what I like the most. And even if I like more a combination of those two, I can even make some sort of crossfade build mixer inside of that channel to get that precise sound of what I like in any given time. Point number 2. Some of the stock plugins are really one of a kind. One of the additions of Ableton Live 11 was the hybrid reverb, where we have this combination of convolution with an algorithmic reverb, and the convolution reverb does have enough presets, and you can import any kind of sample to make a convolution reverb out of it. And we have more than enough algorithms to try and make different sounds, to make different spaces happen. We have a couple of other devices that are kind of new in Ableton Live, like Echo, that has this strange delay feedback and invert polarity for repetitions, with a filter included, with a modulation included, but it also has reverb that can happen before the delays or after the delays, or it can happen within the feedback circuit. That stock effect on its own is extremely powerful. You can do so many things. And remember how many people talk about sidechaining your delays or your reverb so you have enough space. It has a built-in sidechain. It's so easy that it just works. And you have a couple of other effects built in that help you make creative decisions fast. That's one of the things I care about. Point number 3. I can actually perform on anything I want to that I'm working on. Instead of having to draw lines like this, or like this, or like this, that works. Yes, it does work, but I can actually just hit record and start recording parameters and effects just as I play through. And that was the first mindset when I started mixing. I want to perform a mix over an interpretation that a musician gave me. So for example, if I have this musical idea, instead of having to go to this automation view and having to draw everything I want, I can just actually perform it as I would with a modulation wheel in a keyboard, or I would do with a sustain pedal in a keyboard, or I would do with a string band if I'm playing a string instrument. It just makes sense. Number 4, LFOs. You probably have heard more than enough information about low frequency oscillators. We have in Ableton Live a stock plugin that's called an LFO, and it's built with Max for Live. And these LFOs work exactly as they say. They are oscillators that will never emit sound whatsoever, and you can just map this to any parameter within your session. And the beauty of it is that each one of them can handle up to 8 different things. So I can control parameters that are not even in the same track. And that really helps me bring movement to my session. And you can have as many LFOs as you need. You can use different waveforms. You can have randomness. You can add tons of things. And that's a whole other video. If you want to hear about that, post it in the comments and I'll gladly make a video showing some examples of how this can work in music making or in mixing. And number 5, if you're trying to get into Ableton Live and you really want to get into Ableton Live, you have to have a push. This really should be taken as a whole other instrument. A small rundown on what can a push do. It can work as a drum sequencing device that really stands out because you can watch any of the MIDI notes just happen. You can record them as you play it, or you can program them for some genres. Some things might work better, and you can just visualize music. So we can push that line of only sheet music is music. If you're trying to learn scales, if you're trying to learn harmony and melody, you can just use it in key mode, and you will always be inside of a certain scale. For many people this is cheating, but it has to do with not worrying about the notes, but just feeling what happens when you push a note. And once you're past that, you can go into chromatic mode. And it's a whole other way to understand harmony. Honestly, I understood music theory so much better when I got a push, because I didn't have to worry about knowing what was I playing, if the key was this or that. I only had to focus on how does it sound, and that's the only thing that should matter when we're making music. Learning push really pushes you to the edge of learning a whole other way of interacting with your DAW. If you're only using Ableton Live as a tape machine, maybe you're not taking a full advantage of it. You can use it as anything you want, but if you really want to push yourself and see what happens, maybe a push is the right way to go, since it also includes Ableton Live Suite and all of the things that I talked about, like automation, lanes, and performing on anything, is something that you can do so easily from the push itself. I can access any plugin, any device, and I can just hit play, hit record, and it will start automating whatever I'm doing. I even gave a workshop on how I mapped Ableton Push as a mixing surface, so I could push one single path and it loaded a plugin, and I could run down my mixing session using some of the paths. And once you start understanding it as an instrument and not just as a shiny thing to have on your desk, it really pushes the boundaries of your creativity, but you have to be willing to put the time into it. So those are 5 things that I really like about Ableton Live. I think it's really meant for people to perform on whatever they're making. Let me know what you think. Let me know which features you find much more interesting. If you have any questions on how Ableton Live works, please post it in the comment section. I will always want to talk about why something works for you or why something doesn't fit you. If it doesn't fit you, find something new. Don't worry about it. It doesn't have to fit you. The only thing that we should be focusing when we're working with music is that the tool feels natural to us. Whenever time goes by, maybe think about why we were so drawn to it. Other than that, nothing really matters. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share it. You will always find tons of concepts where the DAW really doesn't matter unless stated otherwise. Where I'm saying this only works in Ableton Live. Despite that, you might find the concept behind what I'm doing useful, and you might want to try it out in your own DAW. My name is Juanchis, and thanks for listening.